hold up. I feel as though he's like doing a lot of conflation between gender and sex here, where he's switching back and forth between men and male and woman and female. But I will agree that male and female are not defined properly.
Today on Debunked, we're going to discuss a very common question. Can a man be a woman?
Dr. Levine, do you believe that minors are capable of making such a life-changing decision as changing one's sex?
Well, Senator, thank you for your interest in this question. Transgender medicine is a very complex and nuanced field.
The specific question was about minors. Let's be a little more specific since you evaded the question. Do you support the government intervening?
What the heck? That's good. Can you tell us how puberty blockers affect young men and women? Well, yes, Senator. Thank you for asking that question. Stop evading the question. I'm going to ask it again. I reclaim my time. That's good.
To override the parent's consent to give a child puberty blockers, cross-sex hormones, and/or amputation surgery of breasts and genitalia.
Senator, transgender medicine is a very complex...
The answer, clearly, is yes, as Levine even told a former Trump administration official. Just pause on that for a moment and think about how crazy that is.
All right. Hold on.
Dr. Levine, do you believe that minors are capable of making such a life-changing decision as changing one's sex?
Well, Senator, thank you for your interest in this question. Transgender medicine is a very complex and nuanced field with robust research and standards of care that have been developed. And if I am fortunate enough to be confirmed as the Assistant Secretary of Health, I would look forward to working with you and your office and coming to your office and discussing the particulars of the standards of care for transgender medicine.
The specific question was about minors. Let's be a little more specific since you evaded the question.
Oh, okay. So she actually did evade the question. Like, she literally evaded the question. Okay.
Do you support the government intervening to override the parent's consent to give a child puberty blockers, cross-sex hormones, and/or amputation surgery of breasts and genitalia? You have said that you're willing to accelerate the protocols for street kids. I'm alarmed that poor kids with no parents who are homeless and distraught, you would just go through this and allow that to happen to a minor. I would hope that you would have compassion for Kira Bell, who's a 23-year-old girl who was confused
He's not even asking the question again. He's just grandstanding now.
with her identity. At 14, she found the internet about something about pansexual. That's what I am. She's not getting puberty blocks, cross-sex hormones, breast amputated. Here's what she says now, and this is very insightful from decisions not only made a mistake, but was meant to lead to a good thing in the community. I made a rash decision as a teenager, as a lot of teenagers do. Trying to find confidence and happiness. Except now, the rest of my life will be negatively affected, she said. Having mentalized gender transitioning was a very temporary superficial fix for a very complex identity issue. What I'm alarmed at is that you're not willing to say absolutely minors shouldn't be making decisions to amputate their breasts or amputate their genitalia. Through our history, we believe that minors don't have full rights, and the parents need to be involved. So I'm alarmed that you won't say with certainty that minors should not have the ability to make decisions to take hormones that will affect them the rest of their life. Will you make a more firm decision on whether or not minors should be involved in these decisions?
Senator, transgender medicine is a very complex and nuanced field, and if confirmed to the position of Assistant Secretary of Health, I would certainly be pleased to come to your office and talk with you and your staff about the standards of care and the complexity of this field.
Let it go into the record that the witness refused to answer the question.
Okay. She really did evade the question, so...
Now, in the past few years, you've heard a lot of statements that sound like we must not raise boys as boys and girls as girls because we just can't be sure that kids actually have the sex assigned to them at birth.
Who? This is really well done. This isn't like a normal Ben Shapiro video. I don't know who's saying that though. Like, I don't know. Maybe it's just me. I personally define sex based on the genitalia that you have. I don't define it based on anything else except for your genitals. Um, I would say that it is a binary, but there are exceptions to the rule, and that normally, like, just the same as, like, I don't know. We say like somebody should have two eyes and a nose, and if they're born without a nose, then this is like a deformity. So if somebody doesn't fit into the binary of having either a penis or a vagina, then I would say it's a deformity. But in general, like we fit these things into a binary as far as sex goes.
You've heard that some people are men in women's bodies or women in men's bodies. You may even have heard that if you're a straight dude and you don't want to have sex with a trans woman, meaning a biological male, this makes you gay.
If you don't want to have sex with a trans woman, this makes you gay. I thought in order to be gay, you had to want to have sex with men, or you had to have like the same genitalia. Well, I don't know. People are basing gay and lesbian on gender now, which I think is weird. It should still be based on genitals, but whatever. Uh, I think people are putting a little bit more weight on gender than necessary, but I have never heard anybody say that.
All of this is insane patent nonsense.
He's right.
Males and females reproduce with one another in the human species. We've known this for quite a while. The simple reality is that the human species is sexually dimorphic. Sex is binary. We come in two brands, male and female. Typically, those who have the XY chromosomes are male. Those who have XX chromosomes are female. Males and females differ. They differ in size and shape, and musculature, brain function.
Wait, they showed a bunch of animals a second ago. Aren't there animals that are trans? Clownfish, wrasse, moray eels, gobies, and other fish species are known to change sex, including reproductive functions. A school of clownfish is always built into hierarchy with a female fish at the top. So, yeah, there are some that change. I guess, what about gender roles? Oh, I guess they're showing that like this is a female bird that's puffing up their feathers like a man bird. Oh, snap. That's a female lion growing a mane. So number one, the marsh harrier. While the majority of male marsh harriers are covered in gray down of the feather have yellow eyes, 40% of these males resemble their female counterparts. Females have brown feathers, white eyes, and are much larger than male birds. These male bending or gender bending males adopt a female like down, with the change occurring in the second year of their life. Their eyes and small build stay the same. Scientists believe these males assume a female appearance to prevent them from being attacked by other males. Trying to avoid the toxic masculinity. Okay, cuttlefish. Colobus monkey. Spotted hyenas. Clownfish. Red-sided garter snake. Dude, does this have like a big dart in the side of it? Am I seeing this picture wrong? It looks like there's a giant dart in the side of this freaking lion. Is that what it looks like to everybody else?
As neuroscientist Steven Pinker says, differences between the sexes are part of the human condition.
I don't think that anybody denies that there's differences between the sexes, though. Like, I don't think that that's a thing that people deny. I mean, I guess there are some, like, some radical feminists who probably say things like that. Actually, I know that there are. I've heard them say some crazy things like that before, but yeah. That's not like a general talking point for people who believe in transgenderism.
There are certainly people who have anomalous genetic conditions, like Klinefelter syndrome, in which a person has two X chromosomes and a Y chromosome, and in whom breast development looks female while male genitalia are present. Overall, disorders of sexual development affect 1 in every 5,000 births. Now, the presence of abnormal development does not mean that sex is a spectrum. To suggest otherwise, it would be the same thing as saying that because one child every few thousand is born with 3 toes, this means that the number of toes in the human being is a spectrum. Or that a person with 3 toes might actually be a sloth human, a 3-toed sloth human. All reproduction is rooted in the presence of sexual dimorphism. To pretend otherwise is biologically nonsensical. That's why, to end a conversation on transgenderism, just ask for a simple, non-self-referential definition of the terms man and woman. When I say non-self-referential, I mean you can't say, I feel like a woman, therefore I am a woman. For advocates of biology, the answer for what is woman or what is man is simple. You can look at chromosomes, SRY genes, reproductive systems, verifiable answers to the question.
So I don't think most people aren't going to define like a gender based on just like somebody feels like a woman or some like by itself, right? There's normally 2 parts to it. It's normally the way that you feel and the way that you present. So like I don't like the saying like they like somebody who hasn't transitioned, that people will say, well, they were always a woman. It's like, no, I don't think they were. Maybe they always felt like a woman, but I don't think that they were always a woman. I think that you have to have both. Or you can say they've always been trans. Although, not if they haven't transitioned. Like, there's not something that's trans there. I don't know. I just feel like people want to take like a lot of talking points from the I feel like they want to take a lot of like talking points from the gay community where they say like, oh, but they were always gay, or they were born that way, which I feel as though like studies have shown that we know more now, and that's not the case anymore. I feel like that's old information. But anyways, I feel like they want to take those talking points and apply it to transgenderism, and I just don't feel like that's necessarily true. I think that you have to have 2 things. You got to have the appearance and the inner feeling. If you only present as a woman, then you're just a drag queen, right? That's it. If you don't feel you are a woman, but you present as a woman, you're just a drag queen. If you feel you are a woman, but don't present as a woman, then you're in the closet, I guess.
For advocates of the position that some biological men are women, or vice versa, there is no standard that can be applied. A man can become a woman or a woman a man at any time without any stable definition of man or woman whatsoever. So according to our pseudo-medical activists, gender identity is completely separate from sex. The separation between gender and sex relies on a simple fallacy, that gender is entirely socially constructed and thus separate from biology.
You can be trans without transitioning. I don't think that that's true. I just had this conversation with a bunch of trans people the other day, and they were saying that somebody who's non-binary is not trans. They didn't ever transition to anything. Therefore, they are not trans. And I think, or sorry. Let me rephrase that. They said that they're not transgender because they never transitioned to a different gender, but they are trans. Okay, so we use the word trans as like an umbrella term, but we say like transgender to say you transitioned your gender, or transsexual to say you transitioned your sex, but we don't say like, but we can use trans as just like an umbrella term. Okay, I think I got it.
Gender, in this iteration, would be all the various feminine qualities that adhere to womanhood, or the masculine qualities that adhere to being a male. According to these folks, gender and sex are completely different. Right? All of those gendered notions of femininity, they're completely separate from being a biological female. This Cartesian notion that you can be a woman in a man's body, a soul in the machine, because your gender is separate from your sex, is utterly unsupportable at any level. Everyone understands there are some attributes that are generally considered more masculine. Chopping wood.
Are you using transition in a general sense? Because some people don't medically transition, but otherwise do. Yeah, no, I would say that like if you transition your gender, you don't have that, like there is no medical transition necessary in order to transition your gender. I think that you can transition your gender and get medical things done. So like somebody can have a penis but transition their gender to woman, right? But lots of times they're also going to get like breasts added, because in order to present as a woman, it's easier to like fit into dresses and be viewed as a woman if you have breasts. So they will get some sort of medical transition, I suppose, but normally like a medical transition is just for somebody who's transitioning their sex, not their gender. I don't think medical transitions are necessary for transitioning your gender. You just present as a different gender.
Being dumb.
I'm whizzing with the door open, and I love it.
And some that are considered more feminine. Being caring, being nice, right? These are distinctions that do appear in virtually all cultures. Some of that is undoubtedly biologically oriented, and some is undoubtedly social construction. But it is simply ridiculous to suggest that if a boy is effeminate, he's actually a girl. Or that if a girl...
What? Nobody, I don't think anybody actually says that, because that would be like, I mean, most gay people that I know are very effeminate and flamboyant. Nobody's saying that they're girls. No one's saying that they're women now just because they're effeminate. Like that would be ridiculous. They don't present in a feminine manner, or they don't present as a woman. So yeah, I can't wait just like to see all of the straw men in this video. It's going to be so exciting.
Girl is masculine, she might actually be a boy. But this is what gender theorists argue.
No, it's not.
The origins of the gender identity movement lie with a professor of medical psychology at Johns Hopkins in the 1960s. His name was John Money. After twin boys were born, and after a botched circumcision destroyed one boy's penis, that boy was raised as a girl. By the time that boy was a teenager, the boy felt extraordinary discomfort because he was biologically male, and his parents told him the truth. Both twins ended up killing themselves in their mid-30s. That didn't stop John Money from founding the Johns Hopkins Gender Identity Clinic in 1965. His theory was children could identify as members of the opposite sex, and that radical surgery was the proper solution. That inside, these kids were members of the opposite sex in reality, and that surgery would merely make their bodies align with their identity.
Wait, if that's the case, then why did he do that? I missed part of this because I was reading Tantui's funny comment that Ben Shapiro and Ted Cruz are the same impression, just done at different speeds. That's funny.
Both twins ended up killing themselves in their mid-30s. He was biologically male. Gender identity movement lie with a professor of medical psychology at Johns Hopkins in the 1960s. His name was John Money. After twin boys were born, and after a botched circumcision destroyed one boy's penis, that boy was raised as a girl. By the time that boy was a teenager, the boy felt extraordinary discomfort because he was biologically male, and his parents told him the truth. Both twins ended up killing themselves in their mid-30s.
So this is pretty much proving gender dysphoria. No, Chase, I don't think that you're flamboyant. I am not playing into gay stereotypes. I said most gay people that I know. That's what I said. Are you denying my lived experience, Chase? Okay, so because the twins were, or one of the twins was raised as a different gender than what it was they were born as, this is why they ended up having gender dysphoria and killing themselves. Ben Shapiro thinks he's making a good point here to mention this, but this is actually a point against him to say that gender dysphoria does actually exist. It is a real thing.
That didn't stop John Money from founding the Johns Hopkins Gender Identity Clinic in 1965. His theory was children could identify as members of the opposite sex, and that radical surgery was the proper solution. That inside, these kids were members of the opposite sex in reality, and that surgery would merely make their bodies align with their identity. Money claims that, quote, the gender identity gate is open at birth for a normal child, no less than for one born with unfinished sex organs, and would stay that way for at least a year. So in other words, you could have a full biological boy with finished sex organs, and his gender identity was still open. Brains and bodies were considered in direct opposition, completely separate from one another. Radical feminists like Judith Butler began arguing that all gender was socially constructed, and that therefore all inequalities in outcome between men and women could be laid at the feet of an evil, sexist society. If gender is a meaningless social...
That's definitely, I don't know if Judith Butler actually said that, but that's actually dumb. Like, there are inherent inequalities to men and women. Like, there are obvious differences. Like, there, you know, the men are bigger and stronger and faster, on average, or most of the time, and women have big fun bags that hang from their chest that men don't get. So there are obviously like inherent inequalities to men and women that both sides benefit from.
Social construct created by society. Why does it matter more than sex, which is actual real biology? And why is gender more real than biology itself? Why would anyone need to change his or her body in order to align with gender? a social construction when gender and sex are completely separate in the first place.
So this is where I find issue as well. How can we say that gender is completely a social construct if there are medical if just presenting differently would make you more likely to commit suicide, or to where you have like an actual medical, is it a disability or something like that? Like how, I don't know how you would say it, but to where there are actual medical issues if you do not present and feel treated as the gender that you feel, right? It would be hard then to say that this is a social construct at the same time as saying that it's also a medical condition, like that like you would have biological problems from not presenting as the correct social construct. Just the same as like saying that gender is a social construct, but being gay, you're born that way, right? That's what lots of people keep saying, is that you're born gay. But if you're born gay and gender is a social construct and being gay just means that you like somebody of the same gender, but then we abolish gender, which means we abolish being gay, yet it's something that you're born as. How can we abolish something that you're born as? How is that possible? It doesn't make sense. There are some things in this stuff that just doesn't make sense.
Gender dysphoria, which is what we're talking about here, is a serious and tragic disorder. It is also extremely rare. According to the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual 5th edition, those who had received a diagnosis of gender identity disorder or transsexualism and were seeking hormone treatment and or surgery represented just 0.005 to 0.014% for males and 0.002 to 0.003% for females. Those stats are now rising dramatically.
We have that big announcement from an Oscar-nominated actor announcing he is transgender. Elliot Page came out publicly with a post about his identity.
And in that post, now liked nearly 2.5 million times, the more I hold myself close and fully embrace who I am, the more I dream, the more my heart grows, and the more I thrive. And guys, that's what we love to see.
Yes, he is going to help so many. Janae, thank you so much.
People suffering from gender dysphoria, which, in its non-politicized definition, means the persistent belief that you are a member of the opposite sex, have a tragically high suicidal ideation and
Wait, what's the highly politicized version? That's the same definition I've always heard.
depression rate. That suicidal ideation rate remains tragically high after surgical and hormonal treatment. Longitudinal studies that are good just do not exist on the efficacy of these measures. And the mental health problems associated with gender dysphoria remain extremely damaging, even in particularly accepting societies. But suffering from a mental disorder does not change your underlying sex, any more than believing that you are Napoleon Bonaparte makes you Napoleon Bonaparte. Transgender activists make an objective claim about reality, based on subjective internal feelings. That's unsustainable. What's more, transgender activists demand that you abandon reason,
Google.
biology,
Lights on.
privacy, even the ability to raise your kids in concert with reality in favor of a delusional quasi-religious worldview in which gender and sex are completely segregated and a boy can be a girl and a girl a boy. Now, none of this means that anybody suffering from gender dysphoria ought to be mistreated. Anybody with any sort of disorder ought to be treated with nothing but sympathy and care. But this does mean that a society that seeks to propagandize to children that they can switch their gender is both lying to kids and doing them psychological harm in the process. Unfortunately, that's exactly what our society is now teaching kids in public schools. Anti-biological nonsense, including the lie that you might just be a different gender with different pronouns. And it's not just that. With the new Equality Act,
the motion is adopted.
the Biden administration and the Democratic Party are seeking to promote the idea that any institution that doesn't mimic these lies has to be destroyed. Religious institutions are not exempted from federal regulations that demand that men who identify as women be treated as women. And this is true in sports, in restrooms. Ironically, feminists who sought to protect women from men have now seen female spaces completely destroyed because they can't define female and male properly. Most shocking.
Woo! Hold up. I feel as though he's like doing a lot of conflation between gender and sex here, where he's switching back and forth between men and male and woman and female. But I will agree that male and female are not defined properly. I don't think that everybody else just says, hey, it's based on whatever genitalia you have. There's lots of people who still care about all sorts of other things like estrogen levels and, you know, what your chromosomes are and all sorts of other stuff. So it is weird.
We're now a society that demands that parents hand over their kids to the tender mercies of political actors masquerading as medical specialists. If you have a 12-year-old at school with a headache, the school nurse cannot prescribe to them Tylenol without calling you first. But we now have officials in states and in the federal government suggesting that if a 12-year-old says that she is a boy, the school should be able to prescribe puberty blockers without calling a parent. That is a sick society. In the end, a man claiming to be a woman is making an unsustainable claim. He can't even know what it is like to be a woman because he is not one. A man with surgeries and hormone treatment does not become a woman, nor does a man who simply declares himself a woman. All of this is insane propaganda and is being propagated for political purposes. So, no, a man cannot become a woman or a woman a man.
What? 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 This entire video is pretty much just like, hey, this is what people think being trans is. This is what people think gender is. This is what people think sex is. But that's not the way it's always been. So therefore, a man cannot be a woman, and a woman cannot be a man. Debunked. Like, what did he debunk here? What is it? What am I missing? There was nothing debunked this whole freaking video. I don't even think he made any points. Like, I don't even think he made any arguments against what it means to be trans or what gender is or what sex is. Like, he didn't make any arguments the whole time. I can't believe this. I can't believe this. He literally didn't make any arguments the entire time. He made no arguments the whole time, and then at the end just said, debunked. Done. Got it. That's why. Yes, transgenderism. I don't get it. None of this made any sense. This was not a debunking of anything. That was just a whole bunch of bullcrap.